Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
It's always good to be back. I read an article in the paper the other day that ground my gears. It involved the city of Minneapolis and arrest rates.
Arrest rates.
What it said was...
in Minneapolis. Not surprising.
Well, even though Chief Janae Harteau was on some inspiring leaders list, ranked 22 this year. I forget what kind of list it was. And more or less, I don't give a shit because I don't necessarily care for her management style.
Inspiring leadership?
Inspiring leaders list.
Inspiring leaders list. Like leading a city down the tubes?
Any kind of leader in any position anywhere in the fucking world.
I think they should be any leader that's doing good.
Well, I would say doing well, but yes, if I'm not going to be a grammar Nazi.
Doing good things, cleaning up the streets, not making them worse, not race baiting.
And of course, she got an atta girl from Minneapolis Mayor Betsy Hodges.
Go figure.
Yeah, who's a complete fucking libtard.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Arrests are down in Minneapolis to the lowest level since almost the year 2000.
Does it say why?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Dances around the issue to an extent. It does mention this, and I will get to the segments of what's going on. I know a Minneapolis cop.
I used to.
I won't say how long they've been on the force. I won't say their gender. I won't give away anything else about them other than that they told me that in the 4th precinct...
That's North Minneapolis, isn't
That's
it?
the one where Jamar Clark thing happened.
Yeah.
Most of the cops don't even want to stop the fucking car anymore because the second they get out of the car, the phones are coming out, people are shouting at them. Nobody wants the cops to be there. People are calling the cops or they're seeing crime, but nobody wants them there. So, in the article, this is the one caveat, is that it mentioned how arrests in the 4th precinct are down 45%.
This is exactly where it's going, where I thought it was.
Stops are down 51%.
And it's not because people all of a sudden became better drivers.
No, and they're saying that the city is so much safer and these arrests are down. There was an article 2 weeks ago that there is a car break-in epidemic around the lakes and uptown. The worst they've seen in years. Years. Homicide rate hasn't really dropped. Last year there were just less murders because people are bad at shooting.
Yeah, go to the fucking range of practice if you're going to shoot.
And they're saying that most of the violence has bled into downtown around bar close, and they're looking at amping up the coverage downtown with 15 additional officers in the area around bar close. Does that sound like a city that's gotten better?
No.
Yeah, it's so fucking obvious. I just think, what is wrong with these people that they can act like everything is just hunky-dory down there, but all you're really doing is just sticking your head in the sand like a fucking ostrich and ignoring the elephant in the room.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the media that's out there right now, especially in Minneapolis, is they don't want anyone to know that their ideals that they're putting into practice with this liberalism is actually an utter failure. So, okay, cops aren't pulling anybody over. They're not going to the neighborhoods to investigate crimes. Well, because you said it, they're not wanted there. I'm sorry, that's a group of people that live in that area. I'm not going to say race or religion or anything, that don't want the police there.
Yeah.
So, okay, how can we make this look like we're doing things right in this liberal utopia that is the shithole of Minneapolis? Make things look good. Oh, I know. Everything, all the arrests are down. The driving pullovers are down. Just don't say why. Just say it's all down. Everything's getting better. Everything's safer.
Yes, but they're the number 2 cycling-friendly or bike-friendly major metropolitan area in the nation, second only to Portland. We've got all these great bike lanes and bike trails and bike amenities. Who has time to worry about people getting shot?
Or fixing the roads.
It just... the author of the article in the Star Tribune referred to it as the Ferguson effect.
What?
Ferguson, Missouri, Michael Brown shooting, the town
went
ape shit. They burned down stores and looted Because what's a better way to get justice for somebody that was murdered by an officer than to fucking wreak havoc?
To destroy your own neighborhood and then blame the police for it.
Well, you're not going to drive like 6 miles away to do it. Because
Well, a bunch of people did. I mean, half the protesters in Ferguson weren't even from there.
Yeah, but
It's just a bunch of
were
assholes
opportunistic vultures
Exactly,
about it.
right there.
But the majority of them were within walking distance of where they were at because, you don't want to have to carry 6 boxes of Air Jordans or 3 cases of beer or a flat screen TV a couple miles.
No, that gets heavy.
So now, after the Jamar Clark shooting, and although it didn't happen in Minneapolis, the Philando Castile shooting, cops are fucking nervous, and they've done both a service and a disservice to policing by notifying everybody that it's not illegal to record cops in the process of executing their duties. You have every legal right to videotape an officer.
Now, police officers even record it, not just body cams, because not all of them have it.
They've had to.
Yeah, they've had the dash cams in the squad cars to document pullovers, when they're conducting their investigation, the driver's license and registration, please. So, I mean, that shit's already on camera. But when you whip out your camera and you start acting like a smartass, like you know the law better than the cops do, or you're just going to be standoffish because you think you have rights that you don't actually have. I mean, some cases they do have that right, but when you pull out the cell phone, you're just making an ass of yourself.
Especially if you get in their face and you start asking them questions, trying to goad them into shit. And that's what makes the cops really nervous and why they had to get so many body cams. It's because it turns into a he said, she said, or a he said, or what have you. And it's driving the cops fucking nuts. Now, I have seen many officers in videos that always go viral where the cops are like, you can't record. Give me your phone. Shut off the phone. Turn off the camera. And the people are always like, I have a right to record you. They're like, no, you don't. And cops have gotten fired for taking phones. They've gotten suspended for pulling people out of vehicles, saying that they're obstructing justice by recording. It's just...
Well,
it's making it terrible for cops. I know I say a lot of things that are anti-police because, frankly, people with authority tend to abuse it or to say, I'm an authority, do as I say. Nobody's ever going to get into a logical debate about why they even need to be there with a police officer because the cop's not going to engage in that shit. They're just going to shut it right down so they can get out of there safe and get on to the next call. It's like an assembly line mentality with police. And because they say the number one rule of policing is everybody goes home at the end of the night. Officer safety is paramount above anything else. Mm-hmm. Whereas firefighters, you want to put the fire out and preserve as much life as possible. Cops just want to go home, and it's them over you. Which, that's public knowledge. But because cops don't want to be the next Geronimo Yanez, the guy that shot Philando Castile, they're fucking nervous. They know everybody's strapped. Now, not everybody's going to go, hey, I have a gun. Well, they've got some questionable black object on their lap and then end up with 5 fucking bullets in them. Well, their girlfriend sits there and Facebook live streams the whole thing.
She didn't even freak out when that happened. Did you watch that video?
Well, the episode I did about her paints quite a picture about her mentality. Yeah. She's a psychopath. She don't care about anybody. And she has this weird misconception that she's a social media star. But we all know how good of a person she is because Miss Diamond Reynolds and another girl named Diamond, who spells it a different way, got together to go after some woman last month, and Diamond Reynolds beat her with a hammer, and she got arrested for third-degree assault.
Yeah, but she's a good person.
But back to the subject. So you've got cops that are wary of doing their jobs, so they're not applying themselves. And then they say, well, we're not issuing as many citations for minor crimes. We're not arresting people as often in lieu of issuing citations. And I got to believe the numbers aren't that far down at Hennepin County Jail.
Well, it's probably they're not doing as much, but they're nervous. They're afraid they're going to get sued or whatever. But it also could be they're afraid that they do make one wrong move and someone might try to shoot them. Because how many officer executions have there been in the last 2 years?
Well, the majority of these have been ambush style. You always see they were ambushed while sitting in their car writing a report. They were ambushed sitting in their car at a red light. They were ambushed here. They were ambushed there. There was that guy in Philadelphia a few years back. I believe it was Philly or around Philly in Pennsylvania. The guy fucking sniped cops. And there was a manhunt for like 2 weeks to find him. He was an ex-veteran, and I don't know what his deal was, but he shot 2 cops, killed one, and gravely injured the other. It's the worst time in history to be a cop, all right? I say things that are anti-cop, but I support the police. Good cops that honestly see their job as being a public servant rather than having a position of power over the public. Like, yes, you have a badge. Yes, you get to be the decision maker, but technically that doesn't automatically give you carte blanche to consider yourself arbiter over my life.
Yeah, you can't put... They're not supposed to put their personal views into it, whether they like blacks or not, whether they're Muslim or not. It's judged, justice is blind. That's the way a cop should be.
Well, it's funny because, up until the past few years with all the cops shooting black people in the Black Lives Matter movement, the biggest gripe cops had was dealing with domestic incidents. You go to a house, husband on wife, girlfriend on boyfriend, girlfriend on girlfriend, every type of relationship. Domestics are the most volatile call that you can answer. Right? We went over this shit tons of times in school when I was in college getting my degree. They talked about how most cops hate domestics because they show up, they try to calm everybody down, they try to make one person leave, and they try to get out of there as soon as fucking possible without having to deal with any shit because everybody goes home safe. And that's fine.
Well, yeah, they don't want to get into a fight every fucking night they're working. I mean, it lessens their chance of going home alive.
It may, but if you've got people that will calmly sit there while 2 or 3 officers tend to the situation, and you spend an additional 10 minutes having these people talk it out, and then you make somebody leave? Having somebody leave against their will because they're screaming, and there's still all that unresolved shit that's going to fester overnight, like when they make men leave their own home, and the disgruntled girlfriend's there, and the guy comes back the next day, and she's trashed the joint. Whereas you could have made her leave and let him stay. Typically I'm saying if the woman starts the fight and then they make the guy leave.
Well, in that situation, yeah, I mean, if she started it, then she should leave. If it's his home and she's just a girlfriend, she should leave. Are you saying what I think you're trying to say? Just to clarify here before I go on a ramble.
I don't know.
Like, if it's his house and she doesn't live there, she's just staying there, she should be the one to leave, not him.
Well, that, yes, obviously. But it happened a few months ago next door. My favorite neighbors. Mm-hmm. Apparently, he had a few drinks, and she's quite a prolific drinker. And for once, she tuned him up. I saw him in the neighbor's yard across the street. My neighbor that's kind of special, and I don't want you to talk to him because if you talk to him, it's like getting caught in quicksand.
I have a coworker like that.
Yeah. So I go over there, and here's my next door neighbor guy, and he's got cuts on his arms, and he's got cuts on his ear and the back of his head, and he said that she tuned him up. And I gave him advice, and I'm like, I feel for your situation, and I'm sorry that we don't get along. Oddly enough, I buried the hatchet with him. I'm the one that's always been the more antagonistic dick out of all the parties because I'm the one that's called the cops on them for their loud drunkenness and their bullshit and their fights.
Well, yeah.
But that's been deserved. And, yeah, he was like, oh, man, that's really awesome. I respect the hell out of you for saying that, and thanks for the advice. I'm going to get a lawyer. The only reason he's there is because they have a kid in common. But, interestingly enough, yes, the mortgage is in her name. They're not married. She didn't have a scratch on her. He was bleeding from the head. Mm-hmm. They made him leave. What the holy fuck?
That puts in a tough situation. What's the right thing to do there? Honestly, he's bleeding. He's all cut up.
I would have arrested her.
Arrest her. Yeah.
I would have arrested her right then and fucking there.
I was getting to that. Yeah. I think she should have gone to jail that night.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, you call back to the department and you ask to speak to a sergeant or a lieutenant or even the chief. And if they don't want to hear you out, then you file a complaint. Because that's bullshit. Now, I didn't see her. He's like, I didn't lay a fucking hand on her. And honestly, he's a big puss, it turns out. I've heard from their former roommate, The one that bumped into me at work and said, I got her locked up in there because I called the cops
that
one day and she got pulled in on a warrant. Yeah. I heard from her that the girl's a drunk and she's very verbally abusive and borderline violent quite frequently. And he's just a big puss.
What is with these women?
Those are other people's words. I'm not saying he's a puss. He is very passive-aggressive. It turns out he's actually a pretty decent guy. He just gets a little loud when he's drunk. And when I get mad, I get salty. So I essentially verbally abused a guy that is nowhere near my level of ass chewing. Like that guy, he's not going to talk his way out of a wet paper bag in comparison to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about fighting. I'm saying if two people are trying to argue an issue, I've been told by my coworkers, some of our less experienced staff at work have said, I would never want to get in an argument with him. He's just, you can't beat him in an argument. He's so great at it and he brings up valid points and nothing seems to shake him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to brag. That's just what people have told me. I know I have a skill for debate, but in that instance, the cops fucked up because they didn't arrest her. They could have. They let her and her cousin stay, and they made him leave. Just to keep it calm, just to get out of there, just to get on to the next call. And it's just one cunt hair away from what's going on in the 4th Precinct in Minneapolis, where these cops, they don't want to stop. And more importantly, the officer I know, and I'm going to do an entire episode on police body cam stuff, but I suppose I can meld the two together now. The officer stated they like having the cams. They like that it eliminates a lot of the false accusations of things that were said or done. However, they can only turn them off every so often. And when they're on a call and they're running, you know, if you're involved in that line of work or you work in a jail and you get into a situation with an inmate or you're on the street with a perp,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you arrest them and you're standing outside the car, you take a few seconds to just crack some jokes at their expense or to say some really dark shit to kind of exercise some of the demons out. You de-stress, it's how you decompress.
Yeah.
So what they found is that the officers now like their job even less because they'd be recording situations and they might make some comment like, God, this guy's a real dickhead, isn't he? Your administration would say, that's very unprofessional. If the public heard it, that's the weird fucking thing about cops, is they're on this pedestal and we know that they're average Joes. Like, your uniform comes right off and you're a human being. That badge doesn't make you a god. You're not fucking special. You chose that line of work.
Yeah.
And although you have been sworn into a role where you get to make decisions about who goes to jail, it doesn't mean everybody always gets convicted because sometimes you overstep your bounds. They're just average Joes. So people are like, I respect the police. At the same time, they're like, I fucking hate the police. You're a paid buzzkill. That's a Doug Stanhope-ism right there. So now you can't make these comments, and it's fucking depressing people. It's making the job worse. If you've never been a cop, look, we'll go to a scene, and there might be a car accident. And say the mother finds out that one of the cops said, well, this should be open and shut. He's probably dead. Now, if you just lost your child in a car accident that was not their fault, I'm sure that could hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that cops are numb to that shit. I've seen so many seizures at work, injuries at work, overdoses at work. You know, I have not yet, knock on wood, walked into a room where somebody's trying to kill themselves via hanging or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But even if I saw it, you think it's going to ruin my life? It's not going to drastically alter the trajectory of my career and how I see myself enjoying the parts of my job that I have made my peace with, that I can get through without feeling shitty about. If I see somebody fucking swinging from a pipe or from the bathroom stall, sorry for you. You made that decision. I'll do my best to cut you down and try to revive you, but if you fucking die, we might make some dark-ass jokes about that, and our administration would be like, that's unacceptable behavior. And then they'd send us down to the principal's office, and we'd get a talking to, and we might even get a letter in our file, or heaven forbid a suspension. That shit happens. It's the same for cops. Understand that if you have people that you rely upon to go out there and deal with the shit of society, they are the proverbial human mop to all the shit on the floor that is the streets. You can't be upset if they're a little dirty or a little salty. If they have a dark sense of humor or a standoffish personality. Like, once upon a time ago, a cop from the city I grew up in, I saw him at Target. He'd come to talk to our social studies class when I was in 10th grade because he knew my teacher. Mm-hmm. So I walked to him. I'm like, "Hey, you're a cop?" Or he's like, "Yeah, why?" Immediately, he was fucking uneasy that I recognized him.
Yeah,
I'm like, "Well, you came and talked at Bernie's class, and I'm really glad you did. That was a really interesting presentation you gave, and thanks for doing that. It was a really awesome day in school." He's like, "Oh, well, thanks." Still, he was accepting of the compliment, but he was just, I could tell he was uncomfortable.
He was uneasy. He was just like, what's going to happen? You know, is this somebody I busted once or something? Maybe.
And cops are going to be that way. Even if you are the most anti-law enforcement, pro-Black Lives Matter, stuck on yourself, libtard piece of shit. You know that cops don't want you to call them cops all the time. It's a fucking job. And now in Minneapolis, many cops don't want to do their job. And it's not just Minneapolis. They're just a major metropolitan area that happens to be under the microscope in our state's biggest newspaper. Shit's going on where Philando Castile was shot in St. Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Department of Justice hanging out babysitting them. No officer leaves the department without a babysitter from the DOJ.
Jesus.
They have federal handlers there now because some people are pushing for the PD to disband and for them to be absorbed by Ramsey County Sheriff's Department.
That doesn't change anything.
No, you just have a different uniform.
It's other than a longer response time, but the cops are still going to do their jobs. They have to make split-second calls that may or may not save their life and may or may not take someone's life. That's why if a cop pulled me over, I'm not going to fuck with him. I'm going to cooperate. You know, shit like that.
Well, and here's the funny thing is the secondary side effect of this article, while both praising the accomplishments of what the chief and the mayor claim, and then also outing the way the cops feel, not directly saying cops don't want to do their job, but they mention the Ferguson effect and arrests being down, stops being down, and the uptown crime uptick. You're emboldening criminals. And I'm sure the cops don't want it out there that they're afraid to do their job. You're creating this perfect storm of social unrest where the cops don't want to answer it because they don't want to be the next cop that's all over CNN because it will be on the news for a week fucking straight. There will be protests. Their life will be torn asunder because people will find out where they live. They'll show up to their house. They'll sit there and have a sit-in outside the PD. Miserable time to be a cop. So yes, we should tell the public what's going on. And I went through the comments. As soon as I read that, I'm like 45 comments. I was licking my fingers before I even got my hands on the meat. Don't get cute with that. It was just like being at a fucking barbecue. I knew it was going to be a fucking feast of succulent flavors of hatred towards Betsy Hodges and Janae Harto. And guess what? It was. There was like one comment out of the 20 that I read that was supportive of the chief and the mayor.
I think you're doing a really good job. Crime is down. Well, my house still gets robbed every other day, but I still think crime is down because you're reporting that it's down.
No, those are probably the people that live in the richest fucking neighborhoods of Minneapolis, or they live in like these new high-rise condo developments that are all around downtown where everything's within walking distance to Target Field and this and that. And we don't need the Acme Comedy Club to have a parking lot anyway because we can just build more condos here.
Okay, when I used to do the traffic control in the private industry,
yeah,
I worked all over Minneapolis. Bad part, I hated going into North Minneapolis at night. Oh, shit. But I go South Minneapolis, Northeast, I mean, everywhere. And honestly, you can't escape that shit. It is all over that fucking city. I mean, we go put out bump signs for water pipes that they're running across the road.
Yeah.
And piling gravel over it. So it's a bump. We got to put a bump sign there. Fucking, I put those signs out. 2 days later, I'm down there with graffiti remover, removing graffiti off of 20 of the 50 signs I put out. I mean, it's fucking everywhere.
Animals.
A lot of those houses have giant fucking fences all around their yards, or some of them you can see bars in the windows and shit. And these are like nice, big fucking houses.
Yeah.
The whole city is crime-ridden. And in the last election, you know, when I was looking at the red versus blue, when they broke it down by county, if it weren't for Hennepin County, the state would have been red.
Yeah.
Entirely red. It's just that one small spot, and a little bit of Duluth and St. Cloud. But it's like the state would have gone red in the election if it weren't for Minneapolis. And that is, frankly, also where the most crime is.
This is why we can't have nice things.
That's why I don't want to live anywhere further south than where I currently live. I want to keep going north.
Well, and it's shitty that it gets that way because, you know, the element bleeds out into the suburbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go from the hood to the first ring to the second ring suburbs. People like you, they don't want to be around it. You move your families further out. Now you're in a fucking exurb. You're so far out that you've got a 70-minute commute to work. And you're doing that just because you want a nice yard with your neighbors not half on top of your house. And you know that the only kind of crime that goes on there is a guy a half a cornfield away is going to blow himself up in a meth lab. That's a far cry from somebody kicking in your back door and coming in with guns and knives to rob your house. Because one of my coworkers had his fucking house robbed. They stole his guns.
Jesus.
Yes. Yes.
Were they in a safe?
They were not.
Ah, see, mine are in a safe. But they'll probably just steal a safe.
They could do that too.
I couldn't anchor it to the ground.
Well, that's the thing. Is it was in Ramsey County, but I also have a former coworker from Menards that lives in northeast Minneapolis. And he was one of a number of people in his neighborhood that fell victim to daytime break-ins.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing now because they know more likely nobody's home during the day. And even though it's daylight, people don't question if they see a van pulled up to it says Ace Welding Repair or some shit.
Oh, they weren't even coy about it. They backed the truck up into the driveway. Somebody heard glass shatter on the back door. And the guy was just loading shit in while somebody's at the end of the driveway trying to talk to him. He was that brazen. He didn't give a fuck.
And the neighbors didn't call the cops, huh?
No, they did call the cops.
Oh, it's like, oh, you better leave. The cops are coming.
It was a smash and grab. They fucking got in and out. These were not first-timers. And I saw the pictures, and his whole place was tossed because they were going through so quick. They fucking just ransacked the whole house. Didn't hurt their dogs, thankfully. Because, you know, you got somebody breaking in with a weapon, and your dog won't leave them alone. If your dog's aggressive, they might shoot or stab your dog.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
And unfortunately, when I come home from work, I frequently open the door from my garage to my back patio. And I've had dreams about coming home and my back door's kicked open. I walk in the house and the TV was gone and the room's trashed. So that's like my biggest fear as a homeowner.
Had that happen, yeah.
I'm not worried about my house burning down because I take fire safety very seriously. But,
well, I did too.
Well, of course, I think that somebody had a helping hand in creating that incident when your house burned down.
No evidence yet.
So I think that Mayor Betsy Hodges is probably going to lose the next election.
I don't think she will.
Really?
I think there's that many idiots that live in Minneapolis. They'll keep voting for the person that's got a D in front of their name. Betsy Hodges is a Democrat.
Oh, I was like, what? I'm thinking, does she have another first name? I get what you're saying. Okay, so you think the liberals are going to keep voting for the liberal candidate?
That's what they do, and Republicans do the same thing, and that's why nothing ever gets fixed.
Well, unfortunately, party loyalty is what has turned the two-party system completely into a joke.
Which is why I'm not part of the two-party system.
Correct. I just think that I like that the cops have the body cams, and I did a poll about people. You know, I did like a mass text. I have another friend you said that you liked body cams.
Yeah.
You said you were for them. The most common answer was, I like the idea that the cops can be held accountable if they're fucking up, and that it stops the cops from being harassed by people that make false claims of the cop being rude or aggressive or what have you. Mm-hmm. And I have another friend who just recently became a cop in a big city. I won't say their gender or what city it is, but all the cops that he works with are super happy that they have body cams because they say, well, people can't claim I said this and I said that anymore because we have the video. But even if they didn't have the body cams, it's still a shitty job. And they don't want to get out of the car. And now everybody knows that the cops in Minneapolis are kind of scared to do their job. And that's worse.
It seems like the residents there are doing a pretty good job keeping the cops out of their neighborhoods.
Pretty much. I mean, blocking them when they're trying to drive down the street. People walk in front of the car to slow them down. That's what happens at the 4th Precinct.
Yeah. And isn't North Minneapolis like the worst section of Minneapolis?
That's the 4th Precinct, yes.
Yeah.
That's the shittiest one. Well, now that they've created a situation that people think the cops are chicken shit and they don't want to stop them and they're not going to answer as many calls, I feel like more people are going to be walking around selling drugs, carrying weapons.
Oh, yeah. It's going to get worse.
Petty crime is going to be up. It's not like it's going to make murder happen more often, I don't think.
I don't think murder, but definitely drug use, maybe assault.
Public intoxication.
Like fist fights and stuff. Public intoxication. It'll be almost like the movie Class of 1999. It'll be almost like that.
You saw that?
Yeah. I can't remember if it was Blumpkin or if it was you, but one of the they were talking about it. I was like, I remember that movie. It was not great, but it was good.
It was good. I'm glad you watched it. That fucking movie's awesome.
It was good. The teachers.
Yeah, if you don't know, Class of 1999 is a sci-fi flick from like 1993 or 4.
I think it was 1989.
It was that far before 99?
Yeah.
So there's this terrible segment of a town that has a high school with 2 prominent gangs, and the teachers don't want to do anything about the crime, and the cops don't want to do anything about the crime.
The cops don't even I don't even think they went into that area.
No.
It was like a no-cop zone. It was a shitty school. Like, all the cars were armored that the gangs owned.
Some of them had fucking turret guns on top for guys to stand there and shoot at their rival gang members.
Yeah, and these were not nice cars.
Little over the top, but the point is that a corporation came in with army-developed cyborgs with skin over them, basically Terminators they brought into the school.
It was a bald white guy who was older, and then it was like a young, fit gym teacher, and then the black lady.
That was Miss Foxy Brown herself, Pam Grier.
It was? Okay.
Yeah, and then the principal that they brought in was Stacy Keach.
I can't remember who their principal was.
Malcolm McDowell was the guy from the corporation that was in charge of the project.
Okay.
And then the I won't spoil it, but let's just say that the teachers got a little overzealous in their discipline.
Oh, I love it when they were following the one kid, the main character.
Cody Culp.
Yeah, they were following him, and like the ones got the instruction book on how to drive. Like, oh, lots of violations here, as they're chasing him through the streets.
And it's everybody should go see Class of 1999. Maybe don't see the sequel, Class of 1999 too.
There was a sequel?
I guess. Okay. I don't know.
It was already kind of a B movie, but
so
I guess I went with a C.
The reason I did this episode was because of that story, and I want people to know just how shitty it is to be a cop. If you didn't read that story, it's fucking terrible. You see the news, you probably think, oh, fucking cop shot somebody again. Keep in mind that, yes, cops kill lots of people in the line of duty. Not everybody's innocent. And of course most cops, like 1%, get convicted of manslaughter for doing it. Well, that's because cops aren't out there just killing people for fun or sport. So maybe the next time you see a cop, say, hi, I don't know why you're here. I don't know what you're doing, but thanks for keeping the area safe. People should stop pissing on the cops so much because they're getting it from both ends. Administration is fucking the cops and the public is fucking the cops. And it's Dutch door action. They're getting it from both ends. So be nice to your local police officer. Or he may arrest you and then steal everything you have via civil forfeiture. Then you'll have to get a lawyer to try to sue you to get your TV back. And it won't be you versus the police department. It'll be flat screen TV versus the state of Minnesota.
Yes.
But that was episode 14.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long fucking time ago. Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It? That is at What Do We Call It. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number one fan, Tim.
And that's the end.